हेलो फ्रेंड्स, केजी क्लासेस में आपका स्वागत है। आज हम आपको फ्रांसिस बेकन के लॉन्ग आंसर के बारे में बताएंगे। क्वेश्चन 6 है, डिस्कस द रेनेसेंस स्पिरिट इन बेकन्स एसेस। और बेकन इज द मोस्ट कंप्लीट रिप्रेजेंटेटिव ऑफ द रेनेसेंस इन इंग्लैंड। लर्नड, वर्ल्डली, एम्बिशियस एंड intriguing, discussed with reference to his essays. और बेकन इज द चाइल्ड ऑफ हिज एज, elucidate. आंसर हेडिंग है द रेनेसेंस। द रेनेसेंस मीन्स रीबर्थ और रिवाइवल। इन द एलिजाबेथन एज देयर वाज ए ग्रेट रिवाइवल ऑफ द एंशिएंट क्लासिकल लिटरेचर ऑफ ग्रीस एंड रोम। A boundless enthusiasm for classical studies swept the land. There was a spurt of translation, and those who could not read the ancient masters in original read them through translation. Bacon too was deeply read in the classics. Instances from Greek and Latin are freely used by him to prove his point. His essays are full of quotations from the ancient masters. Many of them begin with a reference to the classics. They are all heavy with learning, sometimes even in a single sentence. We find a large number of classical allusions and references. We quote only one of numerous such sentences, such as is found to have been falsely and feignedly in some of the heated as Epimenides, the Canadian, Numa, the Roman, Empedocles, the Sicilian, and Apollonius of Tyana. No one who has not dived deep into the classics can hope to understand. Heading है the note of romance, intellectual curiosity. The Elizabethans were our first romantics, says Albert. The romantics' quest is for the remote and the unknown. It is a desire to know the unknown. In the case of Drake, Frobisher, Hawkins, and many others, this desire expressed itself through travel and adventure. In Bacon, it took the form of an immense enthusiasm for books. He dared take all knowledge to be his province. As L.G. Selignier points out, the advancement of learning was a clearing of ground, a magnificent survey of the whole range of Renaissance scholarship. Bacon's works bear the impress of Bacon's encyclopedic knowledge. He can write with equal ease and penetration on an astonishing variety of subjects. Each of his 59 essays deals with a different topic in the same learning way. In the essay of studies, he is all for books and says reading makes the full man, conference a ready man, and writing an exact man. Heading a quest for power. Bacon was a learned liar, philosopher, and scientist. He classified knowledge into different branches with great success. He was the pioneer of the modern method of scientific research. He was the first who tried to defy the law of his country. He wanted to use scientific knowledge to acquire power over nature and then use the power so acquired for human progress. In his New Atlantis, in the manner of the day, he dreams of a world made happy and prosperous day of efforts of scientists. Having a craze for worldly enjoyment. The Renaissance did not mean only the rebirth of classical learning. It also means an awakening of the minds of men. The human mind was freed from the shackles of medievalism. The medieval mind is otherworldly. It subordinates this life to the life after death. And in the interest of the soul, shuns all enjoyment of the flesh. The Elizabethans, on the other hand, cared more for this world than for the other. Eat, drink, and be merry was the motto of their life. It was an age of growing materialism in which people cared more for worldly power and wealth than for the good of the soul in the other world. Bacon's philosophy is worldly. His essays are mines of worldly wisdom and are considered indispensable for a young man seeking worldly advancement. The thought of the essays in utilitarian, pragmatic, and opportunistic in keeping with the spirit of the times. Machiavelli's The Prince, one of the influential books of the Renaissance, advocated the exploitation of human weaknesses for the good of the state. It exalted the king above the people, and Bacon's advocacy of divine right of kings was largely influenced by this book. हेडिंग है मैकियावेलिज्म opportunism. Machiavelli also taught that ends justify the means. Bacon too advocates that high ethical ideals may be sacrificed to achieve desired results. Such an opportunistic philosophy is typical of the Renaissance. It could never have been possible in the Middle Age. The truth is desirable, but a little mixture of falsehood advices. Bacon makes it work the better as alloy in coins of gold and silver. He values goodness as the greatest of all virtue and dignities. What also notes without any disapproval that it is the coarse-grained, malignant man who makes the best politician. In the essays of simultaneation and dissimulation, he preaches a sparing use of secrecy and cunning. A man must move on in life even at the cost of high ethical ideals. He may be immoral, false, or cunning on occasions, but he must be careful so that he may not be found out. In the essay of great places, he wants the great to be wary. If they favor the unworthy in their own interest, they should avoid going to an extreme. He is not much interested in religion and metaphysics, and his views on these subjects are superficial and cursory. Of atheism, of death, etc. Heading a travel and adventure. Bacon loved books, but he also knew that books do not teach their own use. They may give knowledge, but they do not give practical wisdom. The wisdom needed for worldly advancement can be acquired only by mixing freely with one's own kind. In this respect, he is quite different from the schoolmen of the Middle Age. Society is also necessary, for it makes a man ready-witted. The Elizabethans were great travelers, and in the essay of travel, Bacon also strongly advocates travel. He considered it as a part of one's education. Travel in the younger sort is a part of education, in the elder a part of experiences. Having a curiosity. Then follows a long list of different objects which are most worthy of being seen in foreign lands. His curiosity for life and for the things left where life has been tempts him to exhaust those public treasuries which are built without doors or defense. Tillotson, the essay of travel, shows his curiosity for every visual and audible details of other countries. He was devoted to books and studies, but it was the living man that fascinated him most persistently. What a piece of work is man, said Hamlet, and it is this wonderful man learning, discovering, creating and enjoying that Tom's the subject of Bacon's study, and it is his mind and soul which is laid bare in the essays. Bacon thus becomes a pioneer of modern humanism, having a taste for lavish living sensuousness. It was an age of pomp, show, and glitter. Money was lavishly spent on rich clothes and jewels. One of the Queen's countries, Sir Walter Raleigh, spent £6,000 on his shoes alone. Bacon too lived lavishly. He maintained a big establishment, had a large number of servants, and used the costliest dress of the latest fashion. The Elizabethan loved all sorts of pleasures of the senses, and Bacon was no exception. His essays of gardens and of masks and triumphs are an ethology of pleasures. Each detail is an object of delight, and Bacon seems to linger over it in leisurely contemplation. Every line of the essay on marks and triumphs is a delightful sensation. Let the scenes abound with light, especially colored and varied, some sweet odors suddenly coming forth without any drops falling, are in such a company as there is steam and heat, things of great pleasure and refreshment, and this sensuous vein is kept up throughout the essays. Bacon's language is highly metaphysical, and his imagery is rich in sensuous pleasure. We would quote only one example to prove the point. Virtue is like precious odors, most fragrant when they are incensed or crushed. Heading a Bacon, the child of his age, one exception. In all these matters, Bacon is every inch in modern, but in one important matter at least he bent back upon his age. In the Renaissance, the poets and scholars, inspired by the patriotism of the age, were making an increasing use of the English language for literary purpose. A new dignity and significance had already been imparted to the native tongue, and it had been demonstrated beyond a shadow of doubt that it could match the classical languages on their own grounds. But Bacon had a poor opinion of his own mother tongue. He regarded Latin to be superior to it. He believed that these modern languages will at one time or another play the bankrupt with books, and in order to save his works from oblivion, he either wrote in Latin or translated them into Latin. Thanks. Best of luck.